So sometimes, I just end up breaking into wait, what was that? Sorry guys, I don't know what came over me. I'm like Seth Rogen laugh sometimes just comes out at random moments. Sorry. No, you know why I did that? I don't know if you remember this. This was somebody, like, when the first Joker came out, like, on Twitter, they said, like, imagine what Seth Rogen's laugh would sound like over Arthur Fleck. And one of those, like, outbursts, they just put in Seth Rogen's laugh. And, in the lead up to and in the release of this movie, I just, I would just get Seth Rogen's laugh in my head. I should get your laugh in my head, too. Sorry. If you hear us laughing and wondering what the fuck's going on, welcome to the Wages of Cinema. We're randomly back because I felt like I need to come on here. So, Jack?
Trash-Panda Korey.
Yes. And this time you did not decide to wade into the trash. I guess you knew better.
A trash panda has her limits.
Yeah, I mean, as your dad is wont to say, to quote Clint Eastwood, a man's got to know his limitations, and so is a trash panda. No, but so what I ended up seeing today, sans Corey, and what I'm here to talk a little bit about to Corey, and I wanted to get on the microphone for, is Joker FOLIE à deux, or as somebody on, I wish I had come up with this and was clever enough, but someone in Letterboxd randomly said, Joker FOLIE à doo-doo. No, but maybe it's not that. Maybe we'll get into that. No, who am I kidding? This isn't good. All right. So you all have probably heard about Joker 2. Even once it's relatively pretentious title came out, that should have been the first sign. Even though, like, I guess FOLIE à deux is like a saying, right?
Yes.
I didn't really know that was as a saying before. I just thought they came up with it because it sounded like folly and
Well, do you know what would be a great example of FOLIE à deux in like an actual good movie?
What?
The movie Bug. Like the relationship between Michael Shannon and Ashley Judd. And that would be a perfect example. When you have like a mutual psychosis together.
Oh, okay. You know what then? I guess that actually is halfway clever given what is in this movie. If this movie actually was clever. But but faithful Wages listeners might remember 5 years ago, Corey and I saw the Joker Prime. And
it sucked. It sucked real bad.
Yeah, we weren't big fans of it. You can go back and listen to our episode on that. But yeah, now here's the thing to know about Joker FOLIE à deux. It is not good. It is not good, but but the things wrong with it are not quite the same things that are wrong with the first movie. Well, I shouldn't say that entirely. Some things are kind of still wrong, but there are other wrong things. While there are things that are actually a little better this time around than in the first movie. That's why, when I got out of the movie, you immediately, of course, wanted to get my hot take, steaming hot off the oven. And I didn't want to say right away because I wanted to sit with it. I should maybe sit with it more, but then again, I don't need to because, this movie's getting trashed, left, right, and center. It has a D cinema score, which I guess, I don't know how cinema scores always work, but that's, a remarkably bad score.
Worst score ever for a comic book movie.
Yeah, I was hearing that. This was worse than The Spirit.
It's dead like Star Trek. We are literally the only people who saw The Spirit, so we can be the only people who got that right.
Oh, come on. There's one fan out there watching. And of course, that's you, Frank Miller. But no, yeah, worse than Madam Web. And the thing about this movie is it's not the worst thing ever. It's not worse than The Spirits. It's not worse than... but like to try to talk about this movie, I mean, first of all, just to give you the briefest rundown of the general plot, and then I should, probably just dive right into spoilers because that would be the way to go here. The story picks up right off of the heels of the first Joker. Kind of like maybe a year or so later, getting ready for the trial of the crimes of Arthur Fleck. He's in Arkham. Even though it's supposed to be Arkham Asylum, it's really more like just a prison. It's really, at first it's a prison movie. And then, one day when he's walking down the halls, he, just sees a woman staring at him. And it's, when they introduce themselves, she's called Lee Quinzel. Yeah, we'll come back to that, of course. And and then the movie is... It actually doesn't get to the courtroom stuff as quickly as you might expect. That's actually one thing that slightly surprised me. Because I thought it's going to be courtroom trial as soon as the movie starts. But no, it actually is until an hour into the movie it's a trial movie.
I have a question for you.
Oh, and then it's also a musical. And of course, I'll talk a lot about that.
Okay. So my question... As you mentioned, I do not hate myself enough to see this movie. But
So not even using your A-list, you would not see this movie. You said you might have watched it on TV.
Well, here's the thing. Months and months ago, before we even saw a trailer, before anything, I had a tiny flicker of interest because I do really like Lady Gaga.
Yeah, what's not to like?
But here's the thing. Even though I haven't seen this movie and I'm not going to see this movie, because while I do enjoy stupid movies, I don't enjoy self-important stupid movies.
Yeah.
But I have nonetheless consumed a lot of discourse about this movie. I've listened to, I think, 4 different podcast reviews of it by now. And
wait, what Joker just said?
And first I want to ask you, the overwhelming impression I've gotten from the discourse I've consumed about this movie is that the movie is boring, which to me is the number one cardinal sin a movie can commit. But I kept hearing over and over again, it's so boring, it's so dull, it's such a slog, nothing happens, it's gray and lifeless, the musical numbers are staged with zero flair.
Okay.
Is it a boring movie?
Eventually, yes. I would say once the movie fully settles into the courtroom part of the movie settles in the courtroom part of the movie. Once the filmmakers settle into that, it does get bogged down because you could tell that Todd Phillips, the director and hack extraordinaire, he just doesn't have any kind of sense of how to do this with any kind of originality. It's very stock. It's very plain. They squeeze in Harvey Dent as a character, and even to the extent that because I just saw Tim Burton's Batman again because thank goodness they did a little re-release for a couple days. And of course, comparing this to Batman is comparing the lunch meat in a poverty-stricken inner city to fucking 5-star restaurant. But at least there, Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, there is kind of an impression that he leaves and you feel oh, this could be a really interesting character. No, he could have been like any other lawyer. Actually, what was funny in my theater, I saw like a weekday matinee, so it's not like there would have been that many people anyway. Well, maybe if this was doing actually well, then maybe yes, but there were only like 5 or 6 people in my theater total, like an IMAX theater. The woman who was kind of behind me and several seats away was like dead asleep through like a lot of this movie, and especially through the courtroom scenes. I actually was a little more not into, but I was keeping up with the movie early on. I wasn't that bored right away because the thing to know is that Joaquin Phoenix, actually, I like him a little more in this movie than in the first one.
Really? Why is that the case?
I think that he's settled into the role a little more. Like, it's also because the movie is supposed to be more of like a commentary on edgelordness than being like an edgelord movie, even though in some ways it is still an edgelord movie. It feels like he's a little more awake through some of the scenes. He's not just, there was a critic, Mark Kermode, who said, the whole first movie was like a gesture, than really a performance. It was basically, do you like seeing him do that, fucking, kick dance down the stairs to, Gary Glitter, I guess. But this time it actually felt a little more like a performance. So again, it still has a lot of the annoying tics and a lot of the crap, and the script doesn't do him many favors, but I could see him trying a little more, especially with Lady Gaga, and she's also quite good. Again, despite what the script gives her to do, which is frankly like a kind of confused portrait of like a Harley, Lee Quinzel, which itself is kind of a comment on like, well, we want to be a little more serious, which is also a problem. I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah. I had to kind of go a little bit on a roundabout to say why this is, in some ways, it is boring when it actually has to tell the story, but when it actually is just kind of hanging out with Arthur and Lee, it's a little more interesting.
I always found it difficult to evaluate Joaquin Phoenix's performance because my issue is I think the character of Arthur Fleck is just so misguided at like a fundamental conceptual level. It's hard for me to evaluate the performance because I guess I think I said when we did the review of the first movie, and I think I said that the performance leaned too much into his physical transformation.
Yeah.
And didn't, like, it was leaning too far on the fact that, like, do you know he got really skinny and can contort his body a lot?
Yeah. This movie doesn't have as much of that. Like, in the very beginning, you see him put on his clothes, and of course, once again, you're like, oh, God, man, have a sandwich. But after that, like, when he actually has to, like, because the movie is, it's about, and this is why it also is supposedly pissed off a lot of fans of the first Joker. It's a movie reckoning with not only what the first Joker is about, but also the people who, hold up, people like the Joker, in such high standing.
What? Now, you said you liked Joaquin Phoenix's performance better this time, and you said you like Lady Gaga's performance.
Oh, and Brendan Gleeson.
Now, what is the chemistry like between Phoenix and Gaga? Because
it's very weird, but it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you could, like, there's kind of a look about when she's looking at him that's it's not the same thing as like a Margot Robbie, and of course that was just God, that was such shit, her and Jared Leto. Not worth even comparing that, but like she almost has like a slight motherly air. But at the same time, it's the thing that sucks is that, again, the Phoenix has to perform through a lot of story beats that it's just like you're making this character dumb when he is like a crazy Looney Tune, but like because what I can go into spoilers now. From now on, spoilers here on out. So if you really, for some reason, want to see this, if you're that one guy and your name's Todd Phillips, you should go see this movie, and then come back. All right, spoilers. So one of the things is that, and this is, I guess, also from the character herself, like, she pretends to be like crazy to go into the mental asylum. The fact that she gets to hang out with Arthur Fleck is it's kind of weird luck. It's like almost shouldn't happen because he's in like the maximum wing, but then Brendan Gleeson, I guess, cottons to Arthur Fleck, his prison guard character, and he gets Arthur Fleck into like this little singing class or group. And that's where they meet and connect and start singing their songs. And like I said, I'll get into that in just a moment because that's a very mixed bag. But she's lying because she is really a well-off, like, daughter of a doctor, went to grad school for psychology, all of that. And she committed herself. And she even tells Arthur, well, I lied, but, everybody lies. And in, like, the same scene, she then is like, oh, I'm pregnant. Because the hashtag sad Joker who fucks. I don't know if you got spoiled on that at all, but yeah, they do fuck very briefly in the movie, too. Well, and it's like the saddest sex scene you've ever seen. It's just like this pile of skin and bones, like, finishing in 5 seconds.
Well, I know her arc in the movie is she's in love with the Joker. She's not in love with Arthur Fleck. So I think her arc in the movie is she gets with him when he's the Joker, but Arthur she doesn't care about. So at the end of the movie, she kind of dumps him, right? Because she's like, I don't want Arthur. I want the Joker. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that, like, why I want to make clear, I don't think this is a good movie. I give this thumbs down. I won't say how, but I didn't pay for this movie. I lucked into not paying for it. Perks of the wages of cinema. But but I knew going in about what Arthur Fleck's fate is.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, like I said, we're in spoilers. He gets killed.
Yeah.
But I think if I hadn't known what not only what that final thing that happens is, but also who does it, I would probably be a lot more mad.
Okay.
But I think what's disappointing though is there's this moment where, like, yeah, he finally breaks down in court, when he's doing his closing thing, I'm really, I'm Arthur, I killed these people, and, I'm sorry, forgive me, blah, blah, blah. And she leaves disappointed. That should have been, but then what happens is he calls her and, leaves a voicemail, and you see her put like a gun up to her head, and then like the shot cuts away back to him. That they should have left it at that. Like, that would have actually been a little more interesting, but they didn't go that route. Instead, it's like what happens is, like, when they're reading off the verdict, it's guilt. They announce his guilty, and then the courtroom explodes. I don't know if you knew about that.
Who's the one that bombed?
They don't really say.
Okay.
And, it's just because it's all like there are all these Joker-inspired fans who've, caused, I guess they're causing chaos. And some of his Joker supporters try to get him away, but then he runs away from them. And then he winds up at the Joker steps, the famous steps, and she's just there. And then they have like this kind of redundant, dialogue where he's like, look, I'm finally out. We can go away together. And then she's like, no, you're just Arthur. You let me down. And then she sings one more of her fucking, motivationless songs and then walks away. She should be the one to kill him if you're going to bring her back for one more scene. Or if you have the courage of your convictions movie, actually, have her kill herself. If you're really meaning to make this, incredibly sad sack of a movie, go full Lars von Trier. Don't be that's the thing. That's the thing I wanted to mention about what sucks most about this movie, why it's not good. Because even though I can try to praise some of the acting just in and of itself, that's not related exactly to the script. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
I could still admire what the actors are trying to do against the shit stream that is what Todd Phillips and his co-writer put out on a keyboard. But it's just the musical sequences when they come up, it's like there's no motivation. There's like, they kind of just happen a lot of the time. It's like in movies, the typical thing, the reason why we like to accept musical numbers in films is because there's some kind of emotional motivation. There's something that's coming out of the characters that needs to be kind of expressed through song, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And the musical numbers, sometimes they're actually quite fun in and of themselves. Other times they are pretty dreary and trying to be a little full of themselves. But in terms of the flow of the story, it's just like, what are we doing?
Well, you know what's funny? The first Joker movie is literally the only Todd Phillips movie I've ever seen.
That's also kind of remarkable.
But I'm looking at his filmography, and this man is the hackiest hack that ever hacked. This is like an embarrassing filmography.
Oh God! Well, even from the beginning, did you hear about? And this isn't. Well, one could say this is related back to the Joker. Did you hear about how he kind of got his start on like his very first student film? No. Well, this kind of came out in an article I saw that like his first film that he made when he was still a film like at NYU, I think he did a documentary about G.G. Allen.
Uh-huh.
You know who that is? He's kind of a notorious...
Okay, is it Hated? G.G. Allen and the Murder Junkies?
Yeah, G.G. Allen, he was this notorious hardcore, rocker guy who would, cut himself open on stage, do all kinds of like trying to make Alice Cooper look like a granddad kind of shtick. He apparently got help to fund the movie through John Wayne Gacy.
Wait, how does John Wayne Gacy have money to give to Todd Phillips?
No, it was like Todd Phillips, I think I read, and again, I could be wrong, I read this in some article, and I wish I could cite it right now, because I feel like a dope, but it was like Todd Phillips was selling signed, like, pictures of John Wayne Gacy out of, like, his truck, and he used that movie to fund the documentary.
Now, the thing I don't get is... every review I've heard of FOLIE do, including yours, mentions that the movie seems like it comes from a place of, like, having a chip on his shoulder about the reception of the first Joker movie.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this. This dumb hack flipped his way into Oscar nominations, $1 billion gross, You told me he won the Golden Lion?
Yes, at Venice. Yeah, he won the grand prize at Lion.
How could this man have a chip on his shoulder? His movie, which sucked ass, was beloved, though.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It could be a couple of things. It could be that maybe deep down he, maybe like it was that you've seen that meme of Homelander from The Boys when everyone's suddenly cheering and he's like, and suddenly he smiles. Maybe that was Todd Phillips thinking like, I don't really, what was I doing here? And all of you are loving this. Now, having said that, I think there is maybe a reading into the movie that I could see Todd Phillips trying to make the argument. Now, I don't know if he will. He might not. I think there is one of the things that I did find a little more interesting this time around than in the first one is because it's looking over the events from the first movie. It's very, that's very tedious and plotting. But the whole idea of the fans of this killer, like in the courtroom, that felt a little more like, okay, well, at least that's a little more like, maybe you're making a comment on Manson. You're making a comment on these real world true crime heroes like Bundy. Well, heroes in quotes that people should stop, holding up. So it almost becomes less about like, it's totally divorced from the comic book character. And which in a weird way, it's like the comic book stuff gets in the way. It's like, dude, just make a fucking movie about like a serial killer who's on trial. But you know what I mean? That's the thing that's really frustrating.
How this guy now. I realized at the time there was a kind of stupid moral panic about like, oh no, people will watch Joker and then go become mass shooters or something. And that moral panic was really stupid. Take it from someone who thinks the movie was bad. That level of pearl clutching was stupid.
I could see it for maybe 10 seconds because, there was an actual shooting in a movie theater for, of The Dark Knight Rises. Now, having said that, the thing is, people are not generally shooting up movie theaters. That was like a freak accident.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
or incident. I
just don't understand how the people who made this movie could be in any way like bitter or aggrieved when their first movie, unfortunately, like my view, the view that the movie sucked, was definitely a minority view.
Yeah, so, me too.
I just don't understand the thought process of my movie got pretty good reviews, made $1 billion, got nominated for like many Oscars.
Yeah.
Won prestigious awards, and I would say the people who didn't like Joker, might have been a vocal minority, but a minority nonetheless. Yeah. I just don't understand how you could have apparently spent the last 5 years, like, bitter and stewing and angry.
The thing of also going into this movie, what I was on the fence because there was a part of me, it's like, I'm not going to go see this. But then the whole... I mean, the curiosity, got the better of me, and curiosity killed the cat. Curiosity kills the Jack over and over. That'd be a good name for a podcast, wouldn't it? Curiosity killed the Jack. Maybe I'll work on that. But the idea that this was also like, oh wait, it's a musical. The characters, the Joker and Harley break out into song, and that kind of drew my attention. And it's like, wow, you have one of the best singers, on the planet, in your movie. That sounds cool. A couple of times they do really let her sing. And then there are other times it's like almost whisper singing. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, have the courage of your convictions and just make this an out and out musical. You still have to like adhere to this fucking you know, full of, you know, pain and anguish, you know, kind of movie. I said this briefly in my review, and I know you probably want to say some things in a moment, but like, I almost thought when I left this movie, like, I owe Lars von Trier an apology. For, you know, well, and I shouldn't usually say that, but like, I thought back to many, many years ago when I first saw Dancer in the Dark, and that was a movie I thought, you know, is Todd Phillips this time, instead of cribbing from Scorsese, is he going to crib for Von Trier? Because that was kind of a daring experiment. You know, that was, you know, you've never seen it, right?
I know of it, though.
Did you see any clips or anything?
No, I know of it. Bjork is in it. She's like a factory worker losing her eyesight. Yeah. And she has these like fantasies as she's going blind. And those are the musical numbers.
Yeah. And, you know, and that's what I thought, is he going to pull from this? And it's like, first of all, those musical numbers are so much more imaginative in their staging than this. You know, I think at the time, like, he shot that movie in like, you know, rough digital, and it looked, you know, pretty bad seeing it in the theater. But now I think about, well, at least that was really trying to do something a little different. This is just like, you know, now Joker and Harley are going to sing, come on, get happy. And they're like, also, Joaquin Phoenix can't sing.
Well, he really can't sing.
The other thing that I learned that Todd Phillips was inspired by, which, you know, God, good for him. One from the Heart, you know, which is the Coppola movie that's, you know, musical, also a notorious bomb. And in that movie, you have Tom Waits singing, and I have to wonder if Phoenix watched that, you know, with Todd Phillips and was like, oh yeah, I can do that. My sir, you are no Tom Waits. I know Tom Waits. Have you no shame? It's just, and they have him sing a lot in the movie. And that's where it also gets so tedious. It's just like,
I agree with you that actually the idea of turning this into a musical is theoretically very interesting, like, but the problem is they're missing key ingredients. Like, the director of Due Date doesn't have the capacity to actually stage musical numbers effectively.
There's one fun musical number, like, again, divorced from the context of the movie. Like, I actually a few days ago watched what's the name of the song? It's like Mountain something.
Okay.
It's like Go Tell him. No, it's a mountain of a hill or something like that. We're gonna make a mountain out of a hill. It's that kind of song. I wish I could look it up, but that it's like it's performed almost like it's on like a 70s variety show, and Lady Gaga is like the organ, and she's actually really belting it out, and Joaquin Phoenix is doing like tap dancing, and he's actually really into it. And it's just like, that number is really entertaining. There's also one time where Arthur Fleck is stewing in his like seat, and, you know, the camera zooms in on his face, and then it breaks into this number when he's in the courtroom and, you know, basically bashes Harvey Dent's face in and pummels the judge, and he's singing the whole time. There's a part of me watching this where I'm like, you know, this would be a lot more fun if it was not in his head.
But yeah, I think,
like, that's what I mean. Like, go all out. You know, who gives a shit?
You have a mediocre director and a leading man who can't sing at all, which seems to be a problem for your musical ambitions.
Yeah, like, I can't believe I'm saying this. They should have gone the route that, like, if you're trying to ape old Hollywood musicals, get someone to dub Joaquin Phoenix's singing.
They should have just done that. They should have done it.
Yeah, like, and that's
because it's embarrassing to take someone of Lady Gaga's talent and then not use her singing to its full potential, which you said they do sometimes, but other musical numbers, and this is something I heard from a review that was not yours, there are some musical numbers where they basically dumb her down isn't the right phrase, but they basically ask her, restrain your natural talent and don't really sing so you can match the leading man who can't sing.
Yeah.
Although, part of me is wondering, for years, I had always had this complaint about La La Land, which La La Land is a movie I like, but I'm not, over the moon about.
Yes.
But for years, I had this complaint about, why'd they cast Ryan Gosling in a musical? He can't sing. What's the deal? Why'd they do that? And then, of course, I was profoundly humbled
by Barbie.
By his incredible performance in Barbie. So some part of me wonders, maybe 6 or 7 years from now, we'll see Joaquin Phoenix in another musical and he'll be great. And maybe they just...
I don't know. See if Joaquin Phoenix had been like Ryan Gosling and got the training on the Mickey Mouse Club, then maybe. But no, but going kind of circling back though to other things in the story, I mentioned about the missed opportunity too that Lady Gaga, the Lee's character, that she isn't the one to kill Arthur Fleck. What ends up happening is just this guy just stabs him, and then you told me yesterday, and I became like that meme. I don't know if you've seen that meme of the stick figure that's kind of slumped over in pain, and oh god, that apparently this is supposed to be young Heath Ledger Joker,
which makes zero sense.
Makes no fucking sense. Sorry, I had to hold the phone away from me while I screamed that it, because wait, or which universe is this in? This is supposed to be its own, the Arthur Fleck Joker. The whole idea is, we're going even, you thought, the Dark Knight was gritty. We're going to go grittier. We're like the fucking, we're the Flyers. We have the gritty mascot, tap dancing all over this shit. We are, and that's okay. You're your own thing. I might not like your thing all that great, but you are in your own sandbox. Why are you trying to connect? And they do have what happens is why I think people, I have to wonder if is it really supposed to be that? Is that just a rumor?
Well, I heard this on the Gerson and Leach podcast review of the movie.
Well, I can see why they might think that. Well, here's what happens. The guy, who's doing a little bit of that, Heath Ledger Joker laugh, but
and he has the scars on his face.
Here's what happens. You see Arthur in the foreground of the shot, and he's been stabbed. He hits his head kind of accidentally on the wall, and he slumps to the ground. In the background, out of focus, and I was seeing this in IMAX, so I know what I was seeing. You can kind of see that he is drawing the scar across his face. But it's so dumb. And also, quite frankly, it takes away from that character in The Dark Knight, right? Because the whole thing in The Dark Knight is, he's doing the Joker thing of, the multiple choice reasons how he got the scar. He gives one person an answer. He gives Maggie Gyllenhaal another answer. If you're a fan of The Dark Knight, seeing this, forget about being a fan of the first Joker. If you're someone who really loves The Dark Knight, you want to throw Todd Phillips into a fucking furnace after seeing that.
And how does the chronology make any sense?
No sense. Harvey Dent is is a character in this movie as a grown man.
This is the early 1980s. Heath Ledger was in his late 20s when he made The Dark Knight, a movie which is set in the present. So his character would be A tiny child.
I'm maybe it's supposed to be that, like, again, I'm now I'm overthinking this, all right? You could tell me I'm overthinking this part. Is it maybe like a thing like in how Deadpool and Wolverine kind of showed that you have these different timelines, and maybe you go into this timeline and they have like a Heath Ledger Joker who is in like the 80s with a Harvey Dent or something. But again, this doesn't even make sense because the big explosion that happens at the courthouse, it looks like it takes out like practically everybody.
Well, what I said to you when I learned that the Joker, like, quote unquote, dies at the end of this movie, when I said, to quote Red Letter Media, no one's ever really gone. However, since this movie is flopping, it probably is the end of the line.
No. I think this is definitely like the end of the line.
In a comic book movie, no one is ever actually dead. And, like, until they don't make money anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I don't know if you knew this, going back to Tim Burton Batman, at the end of that movie, Joker looks, pretty dead. They were supposedly kind of toying with the idea, this is after Batman Robin, so obviously nothing came of it. They toyed with doing another Batman movie in that universe, bringing back the Nicholson Joker. I think it's like a ghost or something, maybe not like living, but yeah, you're right. If they can try to bring back the Nicholson Joker, yeah, but no, they're not bringing back Joaquin Phoenix again. I think if nothing else, he's, probably in the state of mind, like, I've now had to, like, become a Holocaust survivor body, like, twice now. I can't do this again. By the way, also fuck him because...
Yeah, and who knows how insurable he is these days after...
Yeah.
I'm really glad this movie's flopping, though. Like, I take pleasure out of its failure because... These are not the impulses, these are not the creative impulses that should be rewarded at the box office.
No, and as I said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, it's just... It's a movie that I wasn't bored again until it got more into some of the courtroom stuff. And then it tries to break up the courtroom scenes with, Harley scenes. Also, she just like, this is a nitpick, but she can like basically visit Arthur like almost any time she wants. Seems kind of an odd thing. And
well, I guess Arkham is really permissive, and that's why people break out all the time.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's a dreary, self-important boondoggle. I mean, I can't pretend like I'm trying to find things that let me try to put it this way. I think there are a few like smaller like contributing things to the movie that I actually was engaged with, while at the same time, finding the things that they were trying to do in their ambition to be totally misguided and, flailing.
Well, even the first movie has scenes has like some individual scenes that I like.
Oh, the little guy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, he has a moment in the courtroom.
That I heard was good. I actually heard from a review it was good.
Here's the problem with that scene. That actor is really good in the scene, but that's actually one of the few times I hated Phoenix in the movie.
Okay.
I thought he sucked in that scene so bad because because now it's one of those, he's now decided to kind of go more into Joker. Well, part of this also, and if there's any like hidden theme of the movie for me, it's, take your medication. Because at some point, he stops taking it, even though we don't really see how he can stop, because they do the thing where, take the pills, open your mouth, show that you've swallowed the pills. They never show how he can not take the pills. I mean, that's, that would be like a bigger flaw if this was like a better movie. But in the scene where he's taught, like, he's now at this point in the movie, he's fired Catherine Keener, who's his, his lawyer. She's pretty good too. I should have mentioned that. He's now his own, counsel, and he's, he's in the courtroom with the little guy from the first movie. I think his name's Lee Gill or something. I might be getting that wrong. I wish, if you want, could you look that up? I don't mean to keep things like on a, like dead air for our podcast. Lee Gill. I was right. All right. The problem was because she's named Lee. Anyway. He puts on like this fucking Foghorn Leghorns Southern drawl. And it's just like, where is this coming from? This seems like some shit that like Phoenix came up with like the day of on the set, being like, it'd be fun, Todd. What if I do like a Southern drawl? Like I'm in Inherit the Wind. It's like, fuck off, man. This is not fun. This is dumb. It was weird. It was like, that was probably the part in the courtroom scenes I perked up a little bit because Lee Gill is good. Yeah. But Phoenix is so bad in the scene that like it kind of distracts from his performance. So it's like, even sometimes when something is good, it's like defeat snatches from the jaws of victory in this movie. Maybe this is as bad as the first one.
Well, as you know, I have like a fondness for short jokes because I know podcasting is not a visual medium, but I'm very vertically challenged. And I have to admit, like, the scene in the first Joker movie where that poor little guy is like trapped in the apartment and he can't reach like the latch to get out, like that was one of the only instances where I thought the Joker movie actually hit the balance I think it was going for, where it was like really bleak but also kind of like darkly funny. Yeah, well, you could be mean and funny. That was one of the only moments in the first Joker movie where I thought like, okay, I really understand like the tone of the movie, and like I relate to you, little guy. Yeah. Like, well, in that scene, I get it. In the scene in Joker 2, it's like that the humor's not working, but he's like, the Lee Gill is giving like a really heartfelt performance, and there's this moment where he's like crying because he says, you were like the one guy at our clown business. You're the one guy not making fun of me. Yeah. And it's actually it's the one truly emotional moment of the movie that works. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's undercut by it being like a Joker edgelordy scene, which is completely over in the next scene, because that's when the as I also was spoiled about, the beating and rape happens. Yeah. And it's not shown that graphically, but it is like, take those rags off, that there's some pounding going to Pound Town. Yeah. It's like, like the other thought I had, and I think we've talked about this, it's just no more dark Joker stuff. No, like, I'm so, like, this made me like so despairing of where Batman media is. Yeah. I want, like, by the way, Joker should just go away for 20 years. Yeah, we're done. We were fine in terms of live action movies without the Joker for a full 19 years. We did it. Hollywood can do it. It's a sad thing to think about that, like, I don't think it was 19 years. 1989 to 2008. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. And then before that, it was technically the first Batman movie with Cesar Romero to Jack Nicholson was 23 years. But you get what I mean. It's like Hollywood we have to keep, hitting that, we have to keep hitting that Joker pipe, and we can take a break. We can have other villains. Maybe people would find Batman more interesting if you highlighted other villains. You could do it. Marvel made Iron Man and Thor like super top tier characters. Make Man-Bat like a fucking like top tier character. Why not? I know exactly what you mean. I was basically instantly exhausted by this conception of the Joker because
Yeah.
it's basically a 13-year-old boy's conception of what like deep is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, to me, the first Joker movie, it's so adolescent. It's so two-dimensional. It's so
and that's why
David Fincher with a brain injury.
which is why The Batman is a better movie, because at least it's David Fincher without the brain injury. But what I want to kind of close with is this new Joker movie. It's not quite as adolescent as the first movie.
Okay.
I think that's what I've been trying to get to over these many minutes. And I think it wants to, whether you really like the first Joker movie or not, that could be an interesting tack to go with it, to kind of examine in that universe, the people who, are really in love with the Joker as this entity. They talk about, you're Arthur Fleck, you're not the Joker, you're these two separate things. Come on, you're really Arthur Fleck. That's part of the case. But like, it's like, okay, you need to have a little bit more of a brain on your shoulder to really wrestle with these ideas. And again, it's not adolescent, it's just kind of plotting. And the musical numbers, as I said, when they come in, it's like, how are we really leading into this? Maybe once or twice it actually feels a little motivated. But I keep coming back to the idea because, if you are just suddenly like, oh, now we need a musical number, it's really jarring.
Yeah.
So I would say, don't go see Joker 2. Don't go see FOLIE a poo-poo. But if you have other thoughts, you can always send a message to us. By the way, I'll be probably putting this episode up on YouTube instead of directly on our usual platform. So, you might find us there. And hopefully if we come back, we'll have a better movie. I'm glad you wanted to hear me rant about this for a bit. So you got ranty too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the message. You want to know how I got this podcast? I'll leave it at that. Until then, I'm Jack.
I'm Trash-Panda Korey.
And the wages of cinema is...
No hugs for Joker.
Bye.